The full novel promises like smoke is now complete. Dear princes and princesses, feel free to indulge. Let the story begin. In the 7th year of his marriage with Liu Ryan, his once beloved, wealthy first love returned to the country. This man, Gu Nian, bore a slight resemblance to me. But our fates couldn't be more different. At an unexpected reunion of old classmates, he cornered me in a deserted area, with a provocation brimming in his voice as he asked, "Do you think Liu Ryan thinks about you at night? Or is it me?" In that moment, the vows of the past shattered in my mind. My patience crumbled. An unbearable rage made me lose myself. I lashed out. Liu Ryan, unaware of the truth, saw me brawling with Gu Nian and yelled at me, "Why don't you just die?" She had no idea that at that moment I was already hanging by a thread. At that class reunion, Liu Ryan's buried first love returned. His return stirred a whirlwind among our classmates. Compliments and flattery circulated around him. Now he's achieved success and fame. He walked straight through the crowd, came to stand in front of Liu Ryan, and simply said, "Long time no see." Just those 4 words were like a pebble, rippling through the deep emotions Liu Ryan had buried long ago. The murmurs around them were like the water surrounding a lake, revealing old emotions that had never truly settled, coupled with dissatisfaction with the present, directed towards Liu Ryan's husband standing beside her, Mo Zuo, like a neglected shadow. I silently observed Gu Nian. That face, slightly resembling mine, stirred a bitter ache in my heart. I knew that in Liu Ryan's heart, I was nothing more than a replacement, a dispensable shadow. I once vowed to spend my life earning her true affection. But alas, fate played a cruel, insurmountable joke on me. I am about to leave this world. But in these limited, dwindling days, I want to leave behind some warm memories for her. Even if she mistakenly thinks I'm someone else. In the chaos and fury of the reunion, I stood alone, facing everyone's blame and resentment. Gu Nian's provocation, Liu Ryan's disappointment, the classmates' mockery, all converged into an invisible weight, pressing down on my frail, sickly body. I intended to catch a breath, but didn't expect to run into Gu Nian at the restroom door. He sneered at me and said, "All these years, thank you for taking care of Liu Ryan for me. Now that I'm back, she no longer needs you." I stared coldly at him and said, "Who she chooses is Liu Ryan's decision. But for now, at least, I am still her lawful husband." Opposite me, Gu Nian let out a cold laugh and sneered, "Where does your confidence come from? Is it just because your face looks a bit like mine? You tell me, Liu Ryan, when she lies next to you each night, is the person she's thinking about you or me?" Every word he spoke was especially piercing. His seemingly heartfelt sighs felt more like insults aimed at me. I could no longer hold back and threw a punch, hoping it would bring me some relief. But instead, it became the trigger for everything to unravel. A startled cry sounded from behind. As Gu Nian turned around, Liu Ryan had already rushed forward. We've been married for 7 years, and he had never been this furious with me. Chen Muse, have you lost your mind? What right do you have to hit someone? Watching him rush to care for Gu Nian, my heart was filled with disappointment and despair. I realized that in his heart, I would always be a substitute, never able to compare to Gu Nian. I once thought that marriage was something shared between 2 people, but in the face of Gu Nian, I couldn't even hold on to my own place. Liu Ryan's words felt like the final blow, completely shattering all my dignity and expectation. Unable to argue back, I knew my body had reached its limit. I withdrew from the crowd, stumbling towards the hotel's exit, lonely and burdened. On the steps, I took out the medical report I had hidden for so long. Late-stage stomach cancer. Those words struck my heart like a heavy hammer. Yet they also brought me a hint of relief. At least I won't have to struggle too long in this world filled with deceit and hurt. Under the sunlight, I felt the fragility and helplessness of life. Chen Muse, a man burdened with terminal illness, silently enduring as a stand-in, betrayed by both fate and love, will soon bid farewell to this world. But at least before leaving, I once truly loved Liu Ryan, even though that love was never truly accepted. The taste in my throat, bittersweet tinged with blood, the repressed emotions finally erupted. Under the sunlight, I coughed up blood. It was the most powerless protest of my life. I knew that standing on the edge of life and death, nothing could bind me anymore, and nothing could ever make me feel fear again. At this moment, I only wanted to find a sliver of peace and tranquility for myself. Years ago, Liu Ryan came to me, claiming she wanted to avoid the pressure of her family urging her to marry. She said she wanted to team up with me and live together. At that time, it was the 3rd year of my secret crush on Liu Ryan, so I agreed without hesitation. In the 7 years after our marriage, we treated each other with respect, like polite guests. Eventually, emotions did grow between us. I held that cold block of ice in my palm for 7 years, watching as the fortress she had built around herself gradually crumbled bit by bit, to the point that later, I even believed she had fallen in love with me. But now, looking back, it was all just wishful thinking. Unconsciously, I fell asleep on the sofa. I woke up to the sound of the door closing when Liu Ryan walked in. The clock on the wall pointed exactly to 3 a.m. Seeing me awake, he hesitated for a moment, then he took off his coat and hung it in the closet. That coat looked familiar. In the afternoon, Gunayan had been wearing it. Liu Ryan walked over to the sofa, squatted down slightly, and held my hand. "Are you still angry?" I didn't respond. I just pulled my hand away and slid the signed divorce papers in front of him. "This is the divorce agreement. Take a look." Liu Ryan froze for 2 seconds. Then, a hint of anger flashed across his face, as if his secret thoughts had been exposed. "Chen Muse, what is the meaning of this?" "Nothing happened between me and him. We just met as old classmates today, that's all. Can you stop being so unreasonable like a woman?" He asked 3 questions in a row, but the more he spoke, the more agitated he became. The anger I had suppressed all day finally erupted. At that moment, I burst out. "And you, Liu Ryan, in these 7 years of marriage, to you, was I your husband or just a substitute? When you kissed me, were you thinking about me or Gunayan?" I wanted to continue arguing, but the pain in my chest felt like being cut by a knife. I couldn't hold it in any longer. That question came out, leaving Liu Ryan momentarily speechless. After a while, he got up and walked towards the door. "Chen Muse, are you going to be this childish until the day you die?" Leaving that sentence behind, he slammed the door and left. I was left stunned. Yes, even with death looming over me, I'm still this childish. Liu Ryan hasn't been home for 2 days. I called him 3 times to push for the divorce. The first 2 calls were hung up. The last time, he simply turned off his phone. I remembered a few years ago, he had added me to his old classmates' QQ group. I turned on the computer and logged into an account I hadn't touched in ages. Sure enough, the group was still active. Someone had posted some photos in the group. They were from a small gathering of classmates. In the photos, I saw Liu Ryan and Gu Nian. It looked like he had been drinking and had passed out in Gu Nian's arms. I looked at every single photo, then calmly tagged Liu Ryan in the group chat. "Come home, let's sign the divorce papers." He responded quickly. "What kind of madness are you on this time?" A moment later, I received a notification. "You have been removed from the group chat." I still couldn't reach Liu Ryan by phone, but someone rang the doorbell. I pressed lightly on my aching stomach and went to open the door. It was my mother-in-law. "Mom, why are you here?" She stood at the door, her hands full of bags, smiling wearily from her long journey. "You said recently your stomach hasn't been feeling well, right? I got some herbal medicine from an old traditional doctor. Make sure you drink it. I heard this doctor is really good at treating stomach issues." She placed several large bags on the floor, filled with herbal medicine and our favorite food. My nose suddenly stung with emotion. This elderly woman, who traveled from dozens of kilometers away, carrying heavy bags all the way here, still doesn't know that no matter how skilled the doctor is, they probably can't save me now. After hesitating for a moment, I finally brought up the topic of divorce. "Mom, I've thought about it for a long time, and I'm planning to divorce Liu Ryan." There was a dull thud as the teacup in her hand fell and shattered on the floor. Hot water splashed everywhere. I hurried to help her, but she grabbed hold of me instead. "Zichen, did you two have a fight? If he did something wrong, you can tell me." "Mom, no!" I cut her off. "It's my fault. Our relationship has hit some problems." I didn't plan to explain further in front of my mother-in-law. I couldn't bear to expose the disgraceful truth about her daughter. In these 7 years of marriage, my father-in-law and mother-in-law always treated me like their own son. What Liu Ryan did wrong has nothing to do with them. Suddenly, the sound of the door unlocking echoed outside. Liu Ryan was back. "Chen Muse, is sitting idle at home not enough for you? Do you have to make a scene outside too?" Her words abruptly halted the moment she saw her mother. But her mother had already noticed Gunayan standing behind her. Gunayan, however, didn't seem flustered. Instead, he walked forward confidently. "Auntie, do you remember me? I'm Gunayan. Before I went abroad, I even had a meal with you." My mother-in-law remained silent, her face cold. The atmosphere grew awkward. Liu Ryan stepped forward to ease the tension, but her mother grabbed hold of her. "Liu Ryan, let me ask you, are you divorcing Zichen because of him?" Liu Ryan's face paled. "Mom, please don't get involved in this. Whether we divorce or not is between me and Chen Muse." With a slap, her mother cut her off. "You fool!" My mother-in-law pointed at Gunayan, her hand trembling with anger. "Do you really think he loves you? If he did, he wouldn't have left you to go abroad back then." The slap ignited Liu Ryan's temper as well, and the argument between mother and daughter intensified. It wasn't until I noticed that my mother-in-law's face looked off that I intervened. "Stop arguing." I rushed to support her. "Mom, are you okay?" My mother-in-law collapsed from a heart attack and was hospitalized. Luckily, it wasn't too serious. In the hospital room, Liu Ryan and I sat by the bedside. My mother-in-law clutched my hand tightly, tears streaming down her face. "Zichen, Liu Ryan. He's stubborn and always gets caught up in things since he was young. Give him a bit more time. He'll figure it out." I stayed silent. The elderly woman's voice choked up as she gently patted the back of my hand. "All these years, your father and I have always treated you like our own son. We only recognize you as our son-in-law. Mom's health won't hold up for more than 2 years. If you do divorce, I won't be able to close my eyes peacefully when I go. Hearing this made my nose sting with emotion. I can't stand to see the elderly cry and beg. I took a deep breath and reassured her, which finally put her mind at ease. Out in the hallway, clutching my aching stomach, I looked at Liu Ryan. Let's pick a day to get the divorce finalized. Liu Ryan froze. You just said that to comfort her. The more my stomach ached, the calmer my expression became. Our business. I don't want to burden the elderly with it. I'll send you the divorce agreement. I won't agree. Liu Ryan frowned. Chen Muse, stop being unreasonable, okay? Gunayan and I are just classmates. He just got back to the country. Our classmates have been organizing gatherings every day. Besides, we agreed from the start to live together as partners. Whether Gunayan returns or not shouldn't affect our marriage. I found it amusing. I was about to speak, but I noticed Liu Ryan's expression change slightly. Turning around, I saw Gunayan walking over with gifts in hand. The Liu Ryan who just adamantly refused to divorce instantly became softer. The sharp pain in my body almost made me collapse. I had no more strength left to argue with them. I gave Liu Ryan one last look. The divorce agreement. I'll send it to you. After saying that, I turned and left. This time, Liu Ryan didn't refuse. Standing beside Gunayan, he chose silence. At midnight, in a dark, unlit office, Liu Ryan fumbled around in the dark, rummaging through the desk. He searched almost every drawer, but I sat quietly on the small sofa in the corner, watching him silently. The company is about to participate in a crucial bidding project, and Gunayan, having just returned to the country, is eager to secure domestic business deals. He's very likely eyeing this bid. Liu Ryan still came to steal our company's bid proposal for Gunayan. 7 years of marriage. All the feelings we shared were completely obliterated in this moment. In the darkness, I calmly held the proposal and spoke softly. Are you looking for this? Liu Ryan screamed, looking as if his legs nearly gave out from fright. When the lights came on, I could see his face clearly. A look of terror, eyes filled with panic, avoiding my gaze. When he called my name, his voice was obviously shaky. Soon, Gunayan's figure appeared at the office door. It was clear. He must have seen the office lights turn on from downstairs. I quietly looked at Liu Ryan. If you weren't targeting our bid proposal, I would have still considered leaving both of us some dignity. Liu Ryan bit his lip. Gunayan just returned to the country. This bid is very important for him, and it's not important for my company? Liu Ryan couldn't say anything. He knows better than anyone how crucial this bid is for the company too. But still, he chose to help Gunayan. As the tension reached its peak, Gunayan stepped in front of Liu Ryan, shielding him. I'm the one who told him to take it. So what? Half of this company belongs to Liu Ryan too. Why shouldn't he be able to take it? Under the glaring lights, he looked me up and down, sneering with disdain. Muse, now that I'm back, this bid is mine for sure. And so is Liu Ryan. Even knowing he was provoking me, the frustration that had built up in my chest surged uncontrollably. I still threw a punch. Gunayan and I ended up grappling on the floor. Liu Ryan rushed forward, panicking, trying to pull us apart. Chen Muse, can't you stop causing trouble? In the chaos, he raised his hand and slapped me. The slap didn't hurt, but it was loud. Liu Ryan stared at me in shock, his hand still frozen in the position from the slap. Trembling slightly, I didn't mean to. The pain in my stomach intensified. Suddenly, I felt an overwhelming sense of exhaustion. Barely holding on, I picked up the bid proposal from the floor. As I stood up, I started coughing uncontrollably, covering my mouth with one hand. I noticed traces of blood in my cough, but Liu Ryan didn't notice my weakness. He was still trying to convince me. Chen Muse, this bid is really important to Gu Nian. I'm begging you. Can't you just let it go? I didn't want to argue with him anymore, holding the proposal. I turned and slowly walked out of the office. I've given up on Liu Ryan. But this time, I won't give in. Liu Kong has been my assistant for 8 years. When I started my business 8 years ago, he was the company's first employee. He's been by my side through all the struggles till now. I trust him completely. He's also the only one who knows about my illness. The day he saw my medical report, I didn't cry, but he ended up drinking himself sick 3 times. He held onto me and cried for a long time. I handed him the bid proposal. In the office, I patted him on the shoulder. This bid is up to you now. Make sure all bidding-related information is kept away from Liu Ryan. He cursed under his breath. I never thought he'd turn out to be this kind of person. I stayed silent. I should have seen it sooner. He's always been this kind of person. I took a sip of warm water, then looked up at him. Liu Kong, my body won't hold out for much longer. I built this company from the ground up, and I can't trust leaving it to him. In the meantime, I'll slowly strip away his authority in the company. After I'm gone, the company will rely on you. I patted his shoulder heavily. Liu Kong exclaimed, "Brother, you're not planning to sell the company?" "No, what use is money to someone who's about to die? But I can't let the company fall into Liu Ryan's hands. This company is the result of all my hard work over the years. After I'm gone, you'll keep it running for me." I smiled, pressing hard against my stomach, but it still couldn't stop the searing pain. You've been with me since the day the company was founded. For 8 years, every step the company took had your contribution. I feel at ease handing it over to you. Brother, I trust you. In this bid, Gu Nian will suffer a crushing defeat. Gu Nian, after all, just returned to the country. He has money but lacks the connections. During this time, I've been forcing myself to endure, coming to the office every day to arrange various matters. I've already made all the preparations for the company's transition. All the handover procedures are in place. After I die, Liu Kong will take over the company entirely. Liu Ryan won't get a single cent from the company. It really does feel like I'm preparing my final affairs. This company was built by my own hands. Even if I die, I will never leave it to Liu Ryan. Liu Ryan has always been impatient. Within a week, I received a call from him. Chen Muse, are you planning to kick me out of the company? That's right, the company was established by me before our marriage. It's not considered marital property. On the other end of the line, he took a deep breath. I don't agree. Chen Muse, as long as I refuse to sign, you can forget about divorcing me. Do as you please, I've already moved out of the house. 2 years of separation, and the divorce becomes automatic. Although I'm not sure if I can hold out for another 2 years. Liu Ryan stubbornly refused to divorce, and I no longer have the energy to argue with him. I moved out of our home. That house was something I bought before our marriage. I also paid for the renovations. Before leaving, I decided to sell the house. Every corner of it holds traces of the life Liu Ryan and I shared. I can't bear the thought of him and Gu Nian living there after I'm gone. So, while my body can still manage, I hired some workers. Sorry for the trouble, but I need everything in this house torn down. The contractor, with a cigarette between his fingers, spoke in a familiar hometown dialect. "Young man, this place is beautifully renovated. Why tear it all down?" I smiled and lit a cigarette myself, as the smoke filled my lungs. It burned painfully in my chest. I don't want to see it anymore. The contractor didn't ask any more questions, and got to work quickly. I stood by the door, wearing a mask, watching the dust fill the house. It felt like those memories that once belonged to us were being shattered into pieces as well. It's better this way, no chance of looking back. I had the house gutted down to bare walls and sold it at a low price. I stayed in a hotel for a few days, but eventually couldn't hold on anymore, and was admitted to the hospital. Liu Kong visited me frequently. "Brother," he said, moving swiftly, as he poured me some hot water. He sat down in the chair next to my bed. "Did you hear? The news about Liu Ryan sneaking around the office last time has spread all over the company." I glanced at him, and he quickly raised both hands, defending his innocence. "It wasn't me who said anything. The security guards saw it on the surveillance cameras." He mumbled under his breath, "Serves him right." On the weekend, Liu Kong came again, bringing some handmade noodles his mom had prepared. They were firm and springy, but sadly, I couldn't even finish a single strand. "Brother, I've already reassigned all of Liu Ryan's people to other departments, and gave them positions with no real power. Now, all the employees under him are our own people." I smiled as my stomach ached again. "Oh right, brother." He suddenly remembered something, his face lighting up with a grin. "Yesterday, Liu Ryan secretly went to the project manager. Guess what he was up to? He actually tried to bypass you and arrange for us to collaborate with Gunayan's company at a low price, but he got completely shut down. In the end, he had a huge argument with Gunayan in front of the company. The whole company was at the windows watching the drama unfold. I could hear Gunayan throwing a fit, pressuring Liu Ryan to figure out a way to get the company to agree to the collaboration. The two of them were really going at it." Liu Kong snorted. "Serves him right for having no taste. He left someone as good as you and decided to cater to that dog who just returned from abroad." His dog comment made me chuckle. But even the small movement caused a sharp wave of pain to flare up again. The days in the hospital are boring and the medicine is bitter, but at least there's a bit of amusement each day. For instance, old Chen, do you know cats go meow, dogs go woof woof woof, and ducks go quack quack quack? But do you know what opportunity says? Opportunity knocks for those who are prepared. Ha ha ha, that's from Zhou Gangqiang, my fellow patient in the next bed. His name sounds fierce, but he's a delicate-looking guy with a quirky sense of humor. He's 2 years younger than me, also in the late stages of stomach cancer, and his cancer has already metastasized. Every day, he loves to tell all kinds of corny jokes to me, to the doctors during rounds, to the nurses giving him injections, and even to the elderly janitor who comes in too clean. No one can leave without laughing at his jokes. But I've never seen his family visit him. To be fair, no one's come to visit me either. 7 years ago, I settled in the city where Liu Ryan lives. I'm thousands of kilometers away from my brothers. For 7 years, my world was nothing but work and Liu Ryan. And I never really made any close friends here. Hey old Chen, what are you thinking about? My thoughts were interrupted by Zhou Gangqiang. He was lying on his back, with colorful bags of medicine hanging from the IV stand by his bed. Those are targeted drugs, part of his chemotherapy treatment. He just got forced by the nurse to take a bunch of pills. He frowned and called out to me, "Old Chen, do you know why haunted houses always have a piano?" I shook my head, indicating I didn't know. "Because the piano has keys." The room echoed with his off-tune singing. I couldn't help but laugh along. On the day of the first snow, Liu Kong came to visit again. Brother, it's snowing outside. My mom knitted two scarves. I'm giving you one. He wrapped the knitted scarf around my neck. It was warm and he poured warm water into my thermos. He glanced at me and said, brother, yesterday Liu Ryan came looking for me. In the middle of the night. He was drunk. Said he had another fight with Gu Nian and wanted your contact information. I didn't give it to him. I was feeling relatively well that day. So I took a sip of the warm water and asked, what does he want with me? Emotional troubles, obviously. Liu Kong sneered. He thinks he's in love with Gu Nian. But once they were together, he realized they just don't click. Gu Nian is the most selfish person ever. He had him steal the bid proposal and tried to push for that low-price collaboration. I heard they've been having issues for a while now. Liu Kong refilled my cup with hot water. Brother, now he's just regretting everything. He's realizing only now who treated him best. Yesterday, he was crying outside my door, saying he couldn't find you anywhere. He kept saying he always thinks about the days he spent with you. It was enough to make me want to puke. I didn't say a word. Those ugly memories from back then, I had long forgotten. Seeing me remain silent, Liu Kong tactfully changed the topic. Brother, the company recently took on 2 new projects, and both are doing well. You don't need to worry about Liu Ryan anymore. Whether you to get divorced or not, he won't get a cent from the company. Thanks for all your hard work. Liu Kong went quiet for a moment, then pulled out a document from his bag. This is the donation project you asked me to prepare. Brother, are you sure you don't want to keep some for yourself? Maybe there's still hope for treating our illness. It's fine, I know my body best. I don't have much time left anyway. I'll keep enough for treatment. But the rest, I'll feel more at peace donating. After signing the papers, I felt a heavy burden lift off my heart. All my assets, except for some reserved for treatment, will be donated to Project Hope. After all, it's better to do some good than to leave anything for Liu Ryan. 2 weeks later, I suddenly received a call from Liu Ryan. Chen Muse, he paused, his tone carrying a hint of grievance. I've been looking everywhere for you. It took a lot of effort to find your number. He's still the same. Whenever he's done something wrong and feels uncertain, he just softly says my name like this. I felt a tightness in my chest, so I turned my head to look out the window. If you have something to say, say it. How have you been lately? I glanced up at the colorful bags of medicine hanging from the forestand. Pretty good. Another silence followed. Just as I was about to lose patience and hang up, Liu Ryan suddenly spoke. I just wanted to ask you, how do you make that chicken soup you used to make for me? I stayed silent for a moment. There are plenty of restaurants that sell chicken soup. He seemed like he wanted to say something but hesitated. Gu Nian wants homemade chicken soup, but I've spoiled him for 7 years. He's never even set foot in the kitchen. I suddenly found it amusing. Without responding, I directly hung up the phone. As I turned my head, I noticed Zhou Gangqiang craning his neck, eavesdropping. Who was that, your wife? My ex-wife, he clicked his tongue. You two divorced already? We usually talk about everything, but rarely about each other's private lives. He rubbed his bald head, shaved due to chemotherapy, and tried to comfort me. Well, at least you've been married. Look at me, I'm about to head to the grave. And I haven't even entered the grave of love. Well, I was being forced to take my medicine by the nurse. Liu Ryan suddenly sent me a friend request. I didn't accept it. A moment later, she sent it again. After accepting the request, she sent a photo. It was of a dusty old diary. Cover had slightly yellowed with age. Liu Ryan. I found this in the books I took with me. I must have packed it by mistake. I swallowed the bitter medicine, slowly typing back. Just throw it away from me. Thanks. This time. It took her a while to respond. Do you really have to be this cold to me? Chen mused, we're still not divorced yet. Do you really have to be so ruthless? Looking at those lines on the screen, I couldn't help but find it ironic. So in the end, I'm the one who's being too ruthless? I didn't reply to her. I tucked my phone under the pillow and closed my eyes to rest. Old Chen, Zhou Gingqiang called out from beside me. That medicine is bitter, huh? He handed me some candy he stole from Sister Hua. Sister Hua is one of the nurses in charge of our ward. She's around our age. And since her name has the character Hua in it, we jokingly call her Sister Hua. I unwrapped the candy and popped it into my mouth. The sweetness spread from my tongue. The candy was sweet, but my mouth felt bitter. The tiny bit of sweetness was quickly overwhelmed. Just then, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Annoyed by the noise, I took it out. It was still Liu Ryan. I'm sorry, I read your diary. I saw that the girl you wrote about seems a bit like me. But it doesn't really seem like it's me. I've held back for a long time. But I still want to ask you, when you knew about Gunayan's existence back then, and still chose to marry me, were you treating me as someone else's stand-in? Liu Ryan's question was almost laughable. I didn't even feel like replying. I stayed silent. And Liu Ryan didn't send any more messages. The truth is, the girl in the diary was her. But it was a diary from a youthful time, filled with pages and pages, yet never once mentioning her name. Back then, she was the one I secretly admired, but many trivial details have blurred in her memory, so she can't even match herself to the girl in the diary. But all this, I have no intention of telling her. Recently, Zhou Gangqiang's condition has somewhat improved, but on the other hand, my own health has taken a turn for the worse. Winter is approaching, and sometimes when the window is left open, the cold wind sweeps straight into the room. I suddenly have a premonition. It feels like I might not make it through this winter, but oddly, I'm not afraid. However, after the fourth round of treatment, I suddenly slipped into a coma for some unknown reason. I couldn't open my eyes, but my mind was in a haze. I vaguely heard a lot of sounds. The urgent discussions of medical staff, my phone ringing, and even the sound of someone talking. I heard Zhou Gangqiang shouting, "Is this Chen Muse's ex-wife? You better get to the hospital quickly. Old Chen's not going to make it." After a while, I heard Liu Ryan's voice, sharp and grating. Can he stop being so childish? Throwing a tantrum and now pulling this sympathy stunt? Why doesn't he just die already? So noisy, am I really dying? Finally, it's time to go. But then I didn't actually fade away. Instead, I woke up. The same people were still in the hospital room. Everything in sight was white. White walls, white bedsheets, and Liu Ryan's pale face. I frowned, squinting to make sure. It was really him. He was sitting in the chair by my bed, holding my hand tightly. His eyes were bloodshot. Chen Muse, I thought you were faking it to force me into a divorce. You have this kind of illness. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I slowly pulled my hand away, showing no expression on my face. It hurts. If I'd known it hurt this much, I would have preferred to die. Liu Ryan slumped over the side of the bed, crying. He kept mumbling something. but I honestly didn't catch a single word. It felt like there was a knife inside my stomach, twisting and stabbing, cutting in every direction. It's worse than death. Chen Muse, you liar. Didn't you say we'd separate for 2 years and then get divorced? It's only been a few months. He clung to my hand, smearing tears and snot all over it. Disgusting, I wanted to push him away. But I no longer had the strength. Until I heard footsteps approaching in the room. I strained to lift my head to look, and saw Gunayan. He walked up behind Liu Ryan and patted his shoulder. Ryan, let's go. I'm not leaving. Liu Ryan practically buried his face in my arm. I want to stay here with him. Chen Muse is about to die. How could I leave him alone? The pain in my stomach was unbearable, and it spread to my throat. Honestly, I really wanted to say, just leave me alone so I can have some peace. Gu Nian's expression darkened. Liu Ryan, you keep delaying the divorce. I gave you time, but now what? Are you really going to stay in this shabby hospital with him until he dies? With his eyes red, Liu Ryan shouted back. I'll stay with him till the end. Even if I have to die here too, I won't get a divorce. Gu Nian was furious, repeating fine 3 times in a row. Liu Ryan, look at him clearly. He's just a dying substitute, that's all. Before he could finish, Liu Ryan slapped him hard across the face. The sound was crisp and loud. Liu Ryan's body trembled violently. Get out! The two of them completely fell out with each other. Gu Nian stormed out, slamming the door behind him. At this stage of the illness, it felt like every organ inside me was in pain, curled up in bed, gasping for breath. I thought to myself, the Liu family sure does love slapping people. Liu Ryan came back again. He placed a thermos on my bedside table and opened it, filling the room with the aroma of chicken soup. He said softly, I made this especially for you. I learned it from my mom for a long time and cooked several chickens just to barely get it right. I closed my eyes and smelled the chicken soup, but it made me feel nauseous. He scooped a spoonful of soup and brought it to my lips. Try it, he said. The scent of the soup lingered in my nose. I couldn't hold it in and leaned over the bed to vomit. It splattered on his skirt. Liu Ryan has always had a cleanliness obsession, but this time, he didn't move away. With red eyes, he supported me. Chen Muse, what's wrong with you? There was blood mixed with bile. All I could hear were his panic screams. Come quickly, he's throwing up blood. What's the big deal? It's not the first time. Sister Hua quickly ran over, checking my condition while trying to comfort Liu Ryan. It's okay, there's just some blood in the vomit. Let him stabilize first. As she was leaving, she noticed the chicken soup on the nightstand. She frowned. These rich, oily soups. Don't give him that anymore. Liu Ryan bit his lip, okay? After Sister Hua left, Liu Ryan sat by the bed, gently tucking in the corners of my blanket. I haven't looked in the mirror for a long time, but at that moment, I saw my reflection in his eyes. I now have the same shaved head as Zhou Gangqiang. My body's so thin it's almost skeletal. My face is sunken and hollow. I look dreadful. Liu Ryan hesitantly reached for my hand. Chen Muse, I broke up with Gu Nian. Really? He started crying again. I never wanted to get divorced because I was afraid I'd regret it. I know I shouldn't have been caught between the two of you, trying to make up for the regrets of my youth, while still craving your kindness. My mom was right. I really do regret it now. Actually, that day when I asked you how to make chicken soup, it wasn't for Gu Nian at all. I just really wanted to hear your voice. But I couldn't find an excuse. So I asked about the chicken soup on purpose. And that diary. Chen mused, the girl you wrote about in the diary was me. I closed my eyes, the internal pain twisting and pulling at me, every nerve trembling. I couldn't speak. From the next bed, I heard Zhou Gangqiang's voice. Sister Hua, can't you see he's already like this? Just let him go. Yes, it's me. The person in the diary is me. Alright, enough already. Winter was drawing closer, and so was the end of my life. I could feel my weakness growing, and I had come to accept death. But before I die, there's one more thing I need to do. I asked Liu Kong to help me draft a divorce agreement. Have it printed and brought to the hospital. Liu Ryan had fallen asleep beside the bed. I gently nudged him awake. Take a look if everything's fine. Sign it. The bed was raised slightly, and I sat up against the headboard. Liu Ryan stared blankly at the divorce agreement for a while. Then suddenly, in a fit of emotion, he tore it to shreds. I don't agree. His eyes were red as he looked at me. I told you, even if I die, I won't divorce you. I smiled, but even that small movement caused pain to shoot through my whole body. I glanced at Liu Kong. He understood and pulled another copy from the folder. I had Liu Kong print 20 copies. Tear as many as you like. A fresh agreement was placed in front of Liu Ryan. He cried as he tore it up again. But in the end, he didn't have the strength. After tearing up 8 sets of divorce papers, he stared at the shredded pieces scattered across the bed. Suddenly, he broke down in tears. Chen mused, you're already like this. Do you really still have to divorce me? The pain made every word difficult for me to say. Even in death, I want this divorce. Why? He asked. For me, marriage requires love. But I don't love you anymore. This marriage has become nothing but betrayal and disgust. It makes me sick. Liu Ryan stared at me with teary eyes, the light in his eyes slowly fading away, bit by bit. He covered his face and suddenly broke down into uncontrollable sobs. The sound of his crying echoed through the hospital room, seemingly endless. I'm not sure how much time passed, but eventually he stopped crying. Trembling, he called out to me, Chen mused, I'll let you have what you want. With that, he shakily signed the divorce papers, his hands trembling so much that he could barely hold the pen. And as I held the signed divorce agreement, I felt a sense of relief. Finally, I could leave with a clear conscience, no longer shackled by this filthy marriage. At 8 a.m., Zhou Gangqiang was rushed to the emergency room. Just last night before bed, he was full of energy, telling me jokes. He joked while fiddling with his loose hospital gown. One day, a little chick said to a little duck, I'll chase you. And if I catch you, you'll have to hold a memorial service for me. It wasn't even a funny joke, but every time he told one, he'd laugh at himself first, laughing so hard he couldn't stop. In the middle of laughing, he suddenly sighed. Old Chen, do you think that with just us two loners, we'll die without anyone holding a memorial service for us? One night passed, and when I got up, I found that he had slipped into a coma. When Sister Hua and the nurses came to take Zhou Gangqiang away, I shakily grabbed Sister Hua's hand. Sister Hua, I have money. Any amount is fine. Please tell the doctors. They have to save him. Sister Hua patted my hand, her voice choked with emotion. I understand, she said as she turned and walked away with the others. I stared at Zhou Gangqiang's empty bed, a growing panic tightening in my chest. I waited for a long time, not eating, unable to drink anything. Liu Ryan was so anxious he was almost in tears. Chen mused, please, at least drink some water, okay? I pushed him away. As I glanced aside, I saw Sister Hua walking towards me at the door. My heart leapt and I asked, "How's old Joe? He's getting better, right? He'll be back soon, won't he?" Sister Hua didn't say a word. Her eyes were red, like she'd been crying. I understood her silence, but I still didn't want to believe it. Say something. Isn't that idiot old Joe just playing dead outside, waiting to see me get anxious? Sister Hua's voice trembled as she choked up. Joe Gangkyang is gone. All the strength drained from my body in an instant. I should have cried, but after a long moment of staring blankly, I ended up laughing instead. That bastard, he said no one would hold a memorial service for us, so we'd both have to hang in there and stay alive. But he ran off first. Old Joe's death took away my last bit of hope. 8 years. My parents have been gone for years. My friends are thousands of miles away. The person I loved left me. In my darkest and hardest days, it was old Joe who stuck by me and helped me push through. We were a pair of pitiful brothers in misery. But now there's no one left to take care of either of us. When things got tough, we'd hire a caregiver. When we felt better, we took care of each other. We were more than just fellow patients, we were like brothers. Chemotherapy is agonizing, and the medicine is unbearably bitter. The hospital at night only deepens the loneliness that seems to seep into your very soul. If we hadn't leaned on each other, we wouldn't have made it this far. But now I'm the only one left. Old Joe didn't have much in the way of belongings. Just a few hidden snacks he had secretly stashed away, and a couple of worn-out clothes. I paid someone to buy a burial plot and arrange his funeral. But given the state of my health, I couldn't go to the cemetery, nor could I hold a memorial service for him. Among his belongings was also a diary. I took the liberty of reading it. His messy handwriting filled page after page. It hurts. Let me tell myself a joke to feel better. Why doesn't Andy ever sweat? Because she's afraid of leaving regrets. I have so many regrets too. I never even got to tell the girl I liked that I liked her. Mom, you lied to me. You said when life feels bitter, tell a joke, and the laughter will make it sweet. But I told myself 8 jokes, and the medicine is still bitter. A new guy moved into our room. He's 2 years older than me, so young, but already struck with this deadly disease. Really unlucky, but then again, who isn't? Life's almost over, huh? Am I about to die soon too? If one day I leave first, old Chen will definitely sneak a peek at my diary. So here's a secret for you. Sister Hua's candy is in the second drawer on the left. From now on, you'll have to steal it yourself. The diary was thick, and reading it made my eyes sting with tears. After finishing page after page of his scrawled handwriting, I forced myself to get up and wash my face at the sink. When Sister Hua came in to give me an injection, I called out to her, "Sister Hua, let me tell you a joke." But before I could even start, Sister Hua burst into tears. The day after old Joe passed away, a new patient was admitted to the room. It was a man in his 50s, also battling cancer. Liu Ryan, worried that I'd be sad, stayed glued to my bedside, refusing to leave. Even when I tried to send him away, for some reason, I've been feeling even more weak and frail lately. It seems my time to go meet my brother is near as well. I felt drowsy around noon and drifted off to sleep. It was a deep, hazy sleep, and I didn't wake until evening. When I opened my eyes, I saw Liu Ryan asleep by the edge of the bed. Lately, he's ignored my protests and insists on sleeping on the foldable bed in the room every night. His hair was a mess, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. I stared at him for a moment, then spoke to him for the first time in days. "Do you still have my diary? I want to read it." Liu Ryan woke up with a start, staring blankly for 2 seconds, before quickly responding, Yes, I'll go home and get it right away. My face remained expressionless. Thank you, Liu Ryan turned and ran out of the room. Having slept for so long, his legs were numb and he nearly fell. After steadying himself, he hurried out. Less than half an hour later, he came back, clutching the thick diary in his hands, breathing heavily as he ran back to me. Here's your diary. I took the diary from him, holding it in my hands. I asked the caregiver to help me into my wheelchair. The wheelchair is electric, so I can operate it myself. Liu Ryan didn't know what I was planning, so he quickly followed me out. We went down the corridor and took the elevator. I tightened my coat around me. As we reached the open space behind the hospital, I placed the diary on the ground and pulled a lighter out of my coat pocket. Without hesitation, I set the diary on fire. The flames quickly devoured the pages. One by one, the thick diary burned away. Reduced to ashes in the fire, Liu Ryan was stunned, then suddenly screamed, rushing forward to grab the diary. No, he reached out, but the flickering flames scorched his hand, forcing him to pull back sharply. Stop it! He started to take off his coat to put out the fire, but I stopped him. I was at my weakest, but I still wouldn't let him intervene. Liu Ryan, this is my diary. But he choked out, his voice trembling. This is the diary you wrote for me. It's the only thing you've left for me. I know you won't forgive me. But Chen Muse, you can't just leave me with nothing to hold on to. I looked at him coldly. The diary had already been completely engulfed by the flames, as I watched the diary that held all my youthful memories turn to ash. I strangely felt a sense of relief. I smiled faintly and corrected what he had just said. This diary wasn't written for you. It was written for the Liu Ryan of the past. That old diary turned to ashes right before my eyes. I maneuvered around him, struggling as I steered my wheelchair back towards the hospital. As life inevitably comes to an end, being able to sever all ties with the past and leave with a clean slate, I feel a strange sense of happiness. Behind me, Liu Ryan's cries echoed, desperate and heart-wrenching. But I never made it back to the hospital room. As I reached the lobby, my vision suddenly went dark, and I collapsed from the wheelchair. Screams rang in my ears, louder than any of old Joe's jokes. Why is it that even when death is near, pain can still be felt? It hurts. Maybe I should tell a joke to someone, like the one old Joe told me. Was it the chick chasing the duck or the duck chasing the chick? It doesn't matter because whoever catches the other gets a memorial service. It's so cold, even though everything is pitch black before me. I think I can see my parents, whom I haven't seen in years. They don't have gray hair, and their backs aren't hunched. They look just as they did when they passed away. Mom, Dad, your son can't hold on any longer. I'm coming to be with you. Liu Ryan's side story. I fell in love with Chen Muse at first sight because he had a face that was 70% similar to Gunayan's. I know that being a stand-in is the most immoral role you can assign someone in a relationship, but I couldn't help myself. I missed Gunayan too much. I got close to him, flirted with him, and then saw Gunayan announce his girlfriend on social media. That night, I got drunk. Using my family's pressure to marry as an excuse, I asked Chen Muse if he wanted to get married and live together. He agreed without hesitation. What a fool! On September 26th, we got our marriage certificate and began our 7-year marriage. He always treated me well. He pampered me, coaxed me, and put me at the center of everything. Everything he had was mine, and what he didn't have, he would work himself to the bone to get for me. In our 7 years of marriage, I never once had to do any household chores. I gradually became more and more drawn to the man beside me. Many times, I even completely forgot that the only reason I married him in the first place was because of that face that resembled Gunayan's. But when you're in the thick of it, you can't see the truth. It wasn't until I left him for Gunayan that I realized I had already let go of Gunayan a long time ago. What I couldn't let go of was the stubborn obsession buried deep in my heart from being dumped. But by then, it was too late. The house we once shared was sold by him. I heard that before selling it, he destroyed everything inside. Without hesitation, he erased all traces of our past together. He must have hated me to the core. When I saw him again in the hospital, he was so thin that there was hardly any flesh left on his body. He looked utterly haggard. The gentle and refined man I remembered seemed as fragile as if a gust of wind could blow him away. The pain in my heart was like being cut with a knife, but he didn't even want to see me anymore. To get me to sign the papers, he prepared 20 copies of the divorce agreement. He said he wanted a divorce. Even in death, we must divorce. When I heard him say those words, I wished I could kill the version of myself from back then. Afterward, I could only comfort myself by believing that at least he had once loved me. That thick diary, written stroke by stroke, was the proof that he had once loved me. But that diary, too, was burned by his own hand. He was already so frail, so weak that even taking a single step was a struggle. Yet he still forced himself to walk step by step out of the hospital room to the empty lot behind the hospital where he burned the diary. In the light of that day's fire, I finally saw clearly the look in his eyes when he gazed at me. Within the indifference, there was an unmistakable hint of disgust. After burning the diary, he left struggling in his wheelchair and never returned. Tortured by illness for so long, perhaps death for him was also a kind of release. But before his death, the only thing he wanted to do was to burn that notebook that once recorded his love. And I think my heart died with that flame. After Chen Muse's death, I wandered through my days in a daze, but I never expected that after Chen Muse's death, Gunayan would latch onto me again. He's far too blindly confident. And after returning to the country, his foundation wasn't steady when he made investments, one loss after another. Soon, the company was on the verge of bankruptcy because of its inability to recover. At that moment, he came to me, to Hangzhou, begging for my help. Look, this man who once occupied a place in my heart for so many years. I now feel nothing but deep disgust from within. If it weren't for him, perhaps Chen Mus and I could have lived happily together. It wasn't until this moment that I had to admit, in every aspect, from ability to character, he could never compare to Chen Mus. Gunayan wanted me to embezzle money from the company's accounts to help him through this crisis. I coldly refused. Don't you know that the company has nothing to do with me anymore? I don't get a penny from the company, let alone misappropriating company funds. It's impossible. Gunayan anxiously gripped my hand. You only signed the divorce agreement. Chen Mus is dead. Everything he left behind is yours. Even if he donated his share, you still have half of the company. Ryan, help me out. Consider this money as a loan from me. When the company is back on track, I'll repay you. Just help me get through this. Then we'll get married. How about it? His urgency was clear on his face, and he even tried to pull me into his embrace. Are you crazy? I pushed him away forcefully. Gunayan, we have nothing to do with each other anymore. Do I need to spell it out more clearly? Stop bothering me. I've long since lost all feelings. Mentioning the sadness, I couldn't help but let out a bitter smile. Chen Mus had already made plans before he died. The house, the savings. The company had nothing to do with me. Even the diary he once wrote for me, he had to force himself to burn. How could he possibly leave any assets to me? Gu Nian's eyes were bloodshot. Am I foolish? Gu Nian sneered. Chen Mus loved you so much. Would he really leave you not a single penny? Let's go, take me to your company. Saying this, Gu Nian opened the car door parked by the side of the road and pushed me inside without hesitation. He was quick. And by the time I tried to open the door, it was already locked. Let me out. Gu Nian slammed the accelerator to the floor. The car tires were heading toward the company. He's really gone mad. The car door wouldn't open. I quickly took out my phone to call the police. Hello, I need help. Gu Nian cursed and reached out to block my phone. I turned my body forcefully to block his hand. However, during the struggle, Gu Nian's car ran a red light and crashed straight into an oncoming truck. With a loud bang, I lost consciousness completely. When I woke up again, this time I was lying in a hospital bed. By the bedside, my mother had red-rimmed eyes and looked like she had aged overnight. She told me that in the car accident, Gu Nian died on the spot. I survived but might never be able to get out of bed again. My legs were still there, but they had lost all sensation. I couldn't even feel basic bodily functions. After hearing this news, I was silent for a long time, crying and laughing. Chen Muse's face kept appearing in front of me. I could hear my mother's sorrowful crying. She cried that it was all retribution. I forced a smile, but couldn't bring myself to laugh. Retribution indeed. Is this why I ended up like this? No house, no company, no savings, and no Chen Mus anymore. I kept a 2-inch photo of Chen Mus. Every night I placed it under my pillow. But I never dreamt of him. Not even in my dreams. Did he want to see me? On countless nights filled with regret, I woke up crying from my dreams and finally accepted one thing: Chen Mus really did not love me anymore. The end of the story.